People sometimes ask me if there is a certain strategy that helps to defeat the opponent regardless of what he plays. Have you ever faced with such a question about chess and strategies? If yes, please share these stories into the comment section below this video. These guys are usually amateurs who just learned the rules and played a few games. And of course, my answer is no, because everything depends on the concrete position. But however, some strong players know tricks, typical ideas, strategies, and plans that might work in certain type of positions. And this video is about such tricks. Maybe not the best moves, but definitely the moves that can help you to trick your opponent to outplay him, or maybe just to get a better position. This is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev and the list of best chess opening tricks. Number 1. Save a tempo on castle. It's very often when you play a non-familiar position starting from the first moves. For example, your opponent deviated from a well-known theoretical line and made a move that isn't considered to be a good move. However, at the same time you can't prove it right now. And then you start thinking logically what this move does, what are its disadvantages, and how to exploit them. This is how I react on it. And to prove that the move your opponent played is not so good, you shouldn't lose tempos. That's why I'm trying to save a tempo delaying castle. Of course, in such a case, you should be sure that your king is not weak. For example, this is what happened in one of my games. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, Sicilian defense, knight takes d4, queen b6. Godiva variation, I'm not so good in this variation, at least I wasn't at that time. Knight b3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, bishop e3, queen goes to c7, a3 to stop bishop b4, e6, f4, then he has to play d6, then I play g4, b5, g5, I take in the knight, knight goes to d7, h4, bishop b7, h5, bishop e7, queen e2. So now I'm ready to castle queenside. Knight c5, bishop g2. So I'm not castling to the queen side right now. He plays b4, a takes b4, knight b3, he doubles my pawns, knight takes b4. Then, of course, I'm not going to castle queenside anymore. Rook c1, rook c8, and finally, move number 19, I castle. As for black, his king left in the center. So I was making only useful moves and decided to delay castle to save a tempo on something that is more useful in this concrete position. At the same time, my king on e1 was okay, it wasn't weak. If, for example, I decide to castle earlier and play ordinary in this position, then I would play bishop d3, b5, queen f3, bishop b7, and on the move number 12 I would castle queenside, what is actually not the best option in this position. So sometimes you can delay castling, save a tempo, and spend it on something that is more useful. In my case, it was a kingside pawn march that gained me much space. Trick number 2. Play h4 to take the pawn on g6 instead of pieces development. G6 and kingside fianchetto is one of the most typical ideas for black in closed or semi-closed positions. That's why if you want to surprise your opponent, you may play h4 immediately to react on g6. First of all, this move will definitely force your opponent to think and spend his time. What is in your favor in blitz games and rapid games? And secondly, sometimes h4 is a really helpful move, especially if your long-term plan is to attack on the king side. I'll show you a few examples. For example, one of my games. e4, knight f6, e5, knight d5, this is elegant defense, d4, d6, knight f3, knight c6, then I play c4, knight b6 and sacrifice the pawn on e6. So he can capture with his bishop because of d5 fork, he takes with the pawn. Knight c3. Now he plays g6. And what do you think I do? I immediately played h4, forcing my opponent to think. He played bishop g7, continuing his idea to develop the bishop to g7 to put some pressure on d4 with the idea to play e5. And of course, in this position, the best move was bishop e3, but I played h5 and didn't get a good position, so black was able to equalize here. Something like that happened. e5, he takes en passant. I gained the pawn back, but unfortunately, here the position is equal. If only here, instead of h5, I first play bishop e3, then e5, d5, there is no better move but to play knight d4 and sacrifice this pawn back. And after castle, I play h5, my position is slightly better. I keep in mind the idea to attack on the king side. As for castle, for now at least I can leave the king in the center, but I am planning to castle to the queen side. So h4, h5 is a good trick for you to attack the pawn on g6, especially if there is only one pawn left that supports this pawn, for example, like h6 and this variation. Another good example, anti-Grunfeld, d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, knight f3, and here black plays d5. And nowadays, h4 is a modern move that is quite popular on the top level. So even Magnus Carlsen plays like this and even against this position. So here, what's the idea? For example, d takes c4, which is a common move, e4, c5, d5, and b5. So the idea is that if knight takes, then queen a5 check, knight has to retreat, but after knight e4, white is under the pressure, the knight is hanging. But after b5, we can now play h5. Well, if he takes with his pawn, he absolutely ruins his kingside position. So if here he takes with his knight, then we can capture on b5, so it's a kind of a distraction. Queen e5 check, knight c3, and in this position there is no knight on e4, so nobody attacks us except bishop and queen. Bishop c3, b takes c3, queen c3, bishop d2, queen moves, and after bishop c4 our position is slightly better. We are one pawn down, but we have a full compensation for this pawn, at least because of a bishop pair. That's why in this position black doesn't take on h5. So players who play with black pieces here, they usually castle. H takes g6, f takes g6, d6. For example, this is how Shakhriyar Mamediyarov played in one of his recent games. E takes d6 and now knight b5. Now it works because queen e5 isn't a good move. After knight e4, at least we can capture on c4 or play queen d5 check. King moves, queen takes e4, and now if he takes on c3, it's fine, because after queen e1, queen g6, there is no defense on h7 except bishop g7, and here just bishop b2 to distract this queen and then to deliver a checkmate on h7. Well, this is one of the variations, but this is how I just wanted to demonstrate you how h4, h5 and h takes g6 is useful. And knight h5 sometimes doesn't work at all. Trick number 3. Queen d8, b6, c7. So first b6, then c7. In Sicilian defense for black. When you are sure that your opponent is well prepared for the game and knows every line that you usually play, you can get him to Godiva variation of Sicilian defense. Some people say Godiva variation. If he is over 2300 FIDE, he is likely to know how to play this opening properly, but if not, you can get a complicated position that you both are unfamiliar with. Well, you may prepare for this position, but he doesn't, because he doesn't expect you are going to play it with him. And this is how you get good chances to outplay in a middle game of Sicilian defense in a really sharp position. For many players who are playing for a victory even with black pieces, it can be a good alternative to their primary openings. For example, this is what happened when I first time played this position. Queen b6, knight b3, knight f6, knight c3, e6. By the way, at that time I was already a candidate master. Bishop e3 with the tempo, queen goes to c7, bishop d3, a6, f4, d6, queen f3, b5, I castled, bishop b7, and instead of starting the attack on the king side, I just decided to centralize my rook and put it to the e file. And here, for example, knight b4 absolutely equalizes the position, and soon black is about to overtake this initiative by playing d5. However, my opponent also made a mistake. And this is my second game in this position against a grandmaster, and of course I knew that he would go to this line. Here I played slightly better, but you see, so bishop e3, a6, just a transposition of the move. Then I played g4 immediately, b5, g5, knight d7. So what should I do here? I should play h4 immediately, h4, h5, and so on. But I played bishop g2. What this move does, after knight b6, I have to defend the c4 square. Then I play knight d2. So you see, I played too many moves that we're not doing really much, while he could improve his position. g6, queen e2, bishop g7, queen f2, attacking this knight, but rook b8, after that castle, castle, and the position is equal, so he was able to equalize it. At the same time, I was already well prepared for this line, but actually, because I played it only twice, I didn't know how, I didn't understand this position properly. That's why I wasn't sure about the plans and castle king side. However, usually here white castles queen side. King side castle sometimes is possible, but usually queen side. Before we continue with the next trick, let me quickly tell you a story. When I was preparing for my tournaments in Corsica and Crete, together with Grandmaster Dmitry Bocharov, we analyzed many different positions that can appear in my games. And when it comes to the middle game, it takes time for me to find a good plan, while Grandmaster Bocharov could find the perfect plan in seconds. And I asked him how he comes up with it, and his answer was totally impressive. He told me that he just felt where the pieces should move to. Sometimes I also get such a feeling, but usually it happens only when the position is familiar to me. And what about you? How do you feel how to make your pieces interact with each other and how to locate them? Trick number 4. Wait for bishop g5 and Giuoco Piano for black. For example, if you play e5, you are likely to get a lot of games in Giuoco Piano. I actually don't like slow games, but everyone should know how to play them. And I can provide you with 2 tips that can help to make the position sharper. Please look at the board. It's very often when you play black, you play h6 to prevent bishop g5. But if you are not castled yet, it's even in your favor when the bishop comes to g5. I'll show you. So c3, then you can play a6, a4 for example, bishop a7, and now if bishop comes to g5, h6, it doesn't make sense to take, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, and after knight e7, for example, knight goes to g6, you can start the attack on the king side. That's in your favor. As for your king, you can later castle to the king side. To the queen side, or maybe just locate the king on g7. Okay, for example, in this position, not bishop g5, but rook a1. Then castle. And if now bishop g5, h6 still makes sense. Bishop h4, g5. So, for example, to sacrifice the knight in this position won't work, but every time you play g5, you should analyze whether it works or not. Because here, king g7, then queen f3, rook h8, and then just king g6, and this is how you escape. For example, h4, bishop g4. Bishop f6, you just play queen d7, this queen has to move, and then you capture the bishop. Something like that, so it's easy to get rid of this pin. If white doesn't take here, but plays bishop g3, knight h7. Queen goes to the king side, d4, and h5, and so on. For example, h4, g4, d takes d5, d takes d5, knight moves, and knight e7 with a strong attack on the king side. So here black dominates. But let's go back. For example, if after we castle he doesn't play bishop g5, he plays h3, then just h6, and we play a normal line of Giuoco Piano that you get used to play. Okay, and finally trick number 5. Play the opening with reversed colors. For example, do you like playing Sicilian with black pieces? And you even score more points with black pieces. This is what actually my students say. Perfect. Play white as you are black. For example, if you get used to play Sicilian, start the game with c4 and imagine that you are playing Sicilian with extra tempo. Here people usually react with e5, what is considered to be the strongest continuation. Okay, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6, g3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop g2, knight b6, because this knight can be hanging on this square. Castle, bishop e7, d3, he castles. So what did we get? It's a dragon variation with reversed colors, and black spent a tempo on knight b6, which is not actually a good idea. Sometimes this move is helpful, but usually not. Or, for example, if you like Can Sicilian or Paulson Sicilian, then e3 here. Knight f6, knight c3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, queen c2. And then you play Paulson Sicilian with extra tempo. Later you may play a3 and transpose this line to Can Sicilian. However, black can reply with something like c5 or something like e6, and then you should learn at least one line in this variation. For example, knight c3, d5, d4, and this is gonna be a queen's gambit, but you just need to learn just one line. Let it be, for example, Carlsbad system, c takes d5, e takes d5, and then you play this position with a future plan to play f3, e4. If, for example, black reacts with c5, well, just play a standard English opening. Knight c3, knight c6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, knight f3, knight f6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, castle, castle. So again, we get something similar to Sicilian, but there is no pawn on e4 right now. However, the bishop is already on g2. That usually is better. When we have a pawn on c4, it restricts the bishop if it's located on this diagonal, but while the bishop on g2, now it's good, and this is how you also control the d5 square. However, I would say the position is unclear. But this is a good trick to force your opponent to get to the position that he doesn't know and he doesn't usually play while you are familiar. And what is more important, here you get an extra tempo because you are white. You play first. In this video you learned 5 best chess opening tricks to surprise your opponent. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share it with your friends chess players. If you have your own tricks that you use in your games and want to discuss them, You can share it in the comment section below this video, and you can also leave the link to your games here. These were tricks, tips that can give you practical chances to outplay your opponent, or just to improve your position in general. But if you want to trap your opponent, I kindly recommend you to watch the video on the screen next about 7 best chess opening traps. Okay, watch the video and I'll see you there in a moment.